What's up, everybody? This is Jez7780 with another episode of the Grindhouse. I'm a bit under the weather today, so I decided not to go live. But I wanted to do just a quick video because just a normal February morning, Phil Spencer and company drop some news on next generation Xbox Series X, and I definitely wanted to go through it. But yeah, I've been under the weather. I was on vacation. I was on a couple of podcasts last week. I'm getting ready to go to PAX East. Might do another video on just Sony pulling out of that at the last minute and the mayor kind of calling them out. But it is what it is. I'm kind of bummed out about it. But we'll see what's there, and we'll see how it goes. But the big thing though that came out today, which is something definitely, it's really incredible, is that Phil Spencer and on Xbox Wire came out, and let me see right here if I have the display capture here. There we go. Your Series X. We've been talking about it a lot in the speculations of all the different specs for it, but it had yet to be confirmed, and a lot came out during that December reveal at the Game Awards when Phil came out and basically said, yo, here's what it looks like, and here's Hellblade 2, and said, in an interview afterwards about being double the power. And a lot of people started, explaining, hey, it's double the power of the X. It's going to be about 12 teraflops, and this 12 teraflop, news spread around everywhere. And today, they came out, and Phil Spencer, came out here, and Xbox came out and confirmed the 12 teraflops for the Series X. They're going to have variable rate shading, hardware accelerated ray tracing, quick resume for multiple games, which sounds really cool, and smart delivery, which sounds even better than that, and we'll talk about that. But the biggest thing is the 12 teraflops that are confirmed. That is pretty big because the X is 6 teraflops. So, but the biggest thing though, the way it was announced, like, this is the thing going on, which is really, I know in that interview with Game Attack Radio, Phil Spencer said that they were going to be bold now, and I think their position allows them to be this flexible and bold and kind of just drop this kind of news. Coming out on the Game Awards in December and saying, this is what it looks like, and here's a Hellblade 2. Very unconventional for a console release, right? Coming out in a game show and doing that. Secondly, just a tweet. I always say this, at least, is that, this whole wait to E3, wait to E3. And the fact that they're just dropping it in a tweet. Now, I'll prefer if they're games being dropped in a tweet, and release dates and stuff like that. But hey, this is the hardware reveal. Like, get it out of the way. Make E3 all about the games, which I think they said multiple times. That's kind of what they're going for. So yeah, just a tweet on a Friday. On a February morning, and there you go. 12, confirming the specs of this, and so again, I go back to my other video I did about 3-4 weeks ago about power and price, and I'll talk about that a little bit. But I really just wanted to review kind of what what they stated today. But big things came out. I guess people were talking about the RDNA 2 architectures. I don't know. I just think that's showing that it's AMD's latest Zen 2 processor. So it's using the most next cutting edge generation processor to do 12 teraflops of GPU unit, and then the variable rate shading, for the VRS developers and empowers developers to be more efficient to full power of the X, rather than spending GPU cycles uniformly. And then the hardware accelerated ray tracing, which I know has been a kind of contesting thing, software bound, and I know both Sony and Microsoft confirmed the hardware. Here's another confirmation of that. And then the both things having the SSDs. But one of the coolest things that applies to some of the features is that the quick resume, and the quick resume feature lets you continue multiple games, which is definitely different than what we have this current generation, where you only can resume kind of one game. Having that state in multiple games, which is pretty awesome. I don't know how many multiple games, but it's definitely something that's really cool, where you could just jump right into your games. Like, you don't have to go through all the boot screens and all that other stuff, and you just jump right into multiple games, which I think is really cool. Definitely will, it's good for that kind of, hey, just jumping in and it's not worrying about like, hey, I gotta load up the screen. Where was I last and stuff like that. It's like boom, right into right where you were. Because the auto resume feature is really cool. Definitely when you turn on your system and you're right there in your game, and now to do that for multiple games is pretty cool. The DLI, dynamic latency input, the optimizing player to console pipeline. You know, excuse me. Yeah, it's something like I know they talked about this too with the Xbox One, with their their proprietary kind of communications with the system. I know that leads into a lot of challenges with not just using native Bluetooth, but using some sort of wireless communication to the system to increase the decrease the latency between the inputs, which I think is really cool. So they're adding that 2.1 innovation. So they're using the HDMI 2.1, which will allow a lot more with HDMR and higher bit rates go across the HDMI. And then another thing is the 120 frames per second support. So with the support of 120 frames per second, the Xbox X is going to have developers exceed 60 frames in favor of the heightened realism and fast-paced action. So they're allowing that. They're going to higher frame rate support, which is great. And then the big things that they've been kind of referring to is the 4 generations of gaming. Xbox One is at the 360, the OG Xbox. Faster load times, improved resolution, and your accessories come with you moving forward, which they stated a couple of times. And again, a lot of this is just confirmation, but the biggest thing is the teraflops and the RDNA process, like what kind of processor they were using, and what features they're going to use of the processor from AMD. But this one is pretty cool, the smart delivery, because this kind of goes along the lines of, are we going to see remasters? I know Frogs brought that up a lot on our shows about how the end of remasters, like basically we're just going to get a game, it's going to know the console that you're playing on, it's just going to, if it's patched, it's just going to patch it up. Whether they charge for patches or not, who knows? But the thing is that the system will automatically detect that you're on a more powerful system and upgrade it accordingly. Similar to how we have it now with the Pro and the X going that way. And Microsoft is committing all their first-party games to support this smart delivery, similar to the X. It's exactly what the X does. Like, if you read a lot of this stuff, we could just jump back to 2017. And I said that in my video about 3 weeks ago. The way this is being rolled out, now the timing is definitely different, but the way it's being rolled out and the approach of the next generation console is definitely the end of generations. Like, this is just a migration to a more powerful system with some unique features, with like the multiple resume and stuff like that, the SSD, and for speed. And it's just going to upgrade the games that you already have, or the games that come out. It's going to know if you're on the Series X or the X, and accordingly give you those textures or give you that kind of experience. So the smart delivery is really cool. The one thing though that that I it always leaves the option for remasters and all that other stuff is the last sentence, where it says this technology is available for all developers and publishers, and they can choose to use it for titles that will be released on the Xbox One first and come to the Series X later. So, this is sort of like that patch thing. Like, it's not going to be all your games are just going to be better on the Series X, which I guess is unfortunate. And this is something I brought up too with the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5 upgrade. It's like, if we got to wait for patches of all these games and stuff like that to take advantage of it, it's going to be kind of crappy. I wish that it just did it automatically, but I guess it can't, because they're developing it for the Xbox One or the PlayStation 4 first, and then they'll have to patch it for that. So we're going to still get that kind of remaster or come back, just like we're doing with the Pro and the X. But, I hope they don't charge for it. Like, hey, $10 upgrade, $5 upgrade, because that's going to be a whole... Oh, yeah. I hope they don't do that. Please.
No deal.
Don't do that. Don't make us pay for Series X and PlayStation 5 upgrades. I hope not. But Microsoft doesn't seem to be doing it, because they're going to have all their first party in there. So it's confirmed that it's going to be one game across the generations. At least this is basically backwards compatibility. But will the Series X game go back to an Xbox One? It looks like wherever you go, it's just going to know what system you're on and do it, just like with the X. And then the plug for Game Pass. In addition, they'll have 4 console generations. They'll have Game Pass, and all their first-party games our first party games, Halo Infinite, will be at launch. So they confirm that moving forward, all their first party games for Xbox Game Pass Studio will be day one in Game Pass at launch. So they did that. And it says here, just to end it, it says the Xbox Series X is our most powerful console ever designed for a console generation with you at the center, meaning high fidelity gaming, quite bold design, and whether embracing the 15 game studios that they're making, the Xbox Game Studios, fueling game discovery with Game Pass. The team stands of frictionless pathways, and it says the Xbox Series X represents the same commitment for players who want immediate immersion in games and look and feel, and they're going to be more as they go to E3. So, just an article, just confirming this stuff, which, I have to say is really, it's bold again, and it says right here, just the raw power is part of the story. So, more to it, like definitely there's more to this. But we run into the same thing. It's like, now we got to see the games are going to use those 12 teraflops. And that's kind of where we, ran into with the Xbox X, with the Series X, is not a lot of, like, the games really didn't blow people away. Like, they were better looking, but now we got even 12 teraflops. Like, is it going to just be about speed, or are these visually going to be like, hey, a game running on a Series X and an X are going to look visually like, wow, I could tell. Like, boom, that's better and that's better. Especially if they're both running around 4K. Resolution, sharpness is going to be different. It's going to be more about lighting, textures, and shadows and all that other stuff, which I hope is apparent, I don't want to pay for all this overhead of teraflops and it not being utilized. And, that goes for all next generation. It's going to be interesting. So, like I said before, with the both the next gen consoles, like, what is the position going to be? This seems like it's definitely more speed and power. Speed and power and speed. That's what they're going for. Sony has alluded to some of their stuff on the PlayStation 5, but they remain quiet. They're pulling out of events due to, the virus. Like, they would have showed Last of Us 2 and all those other things. But unfortunately, they have just been kind of quiet. And I really think that, where's my He-Man thing? But yeah, I really think that, Microsoft is being bold. And they have to be. This is a great move from them. Like, they have to be this, they need to talk. They need to talk about this stuff. But given their position and given, their kind of end of generations, like, this is like if you buy the Samsung Galaxy S10 and about 4 or 5 months later at Mobile World Congress or something, they're showing the S20. It's just like, yep, this is a better version of that one. It has these kind of features. It does this better. It's the newer processor. It's a stronger processor. It's double the power of the previous phone. Just like a cell phone model. Excuse me. We're talking about the generations. Like, they've shown Hellblade 2, like, what a clip of it. They've alluded to Halo Everwild. So they're not afraid to show the future, because guess what? The future is now. The future is the same thing that's now. So, like, what you're going to play on the Series X is the same stuff you're going to play on your Xbox, like, now. Because their games are going to be cross-generational. Like, all their games. Now, they didn't identify any specific games yet, just on next-gen consoles. Now, in the other aspect, Sony's, I think, is a little bit more of a, stopgap. They'll have some cross-generation, I'm sure, but there might be just PlayStation 5 games. That's why we don't know what else has come from Sony besides the big games that are coming out this year. Last of Us 2, Ghosts, Dreams just released. Neo 2 is exclusive. That's a timed exclusive. But I'm talking about that first party. And Final Fantasy 7 is another exclusive timed. But they got some big games that are only on their platform this year, in addition to the PlayStation 5 launching with more games. But Microsoft, really, it's just a smorgasbord of where you want to play. It's the same game that's everywhere. You could play it on PC, where it's the most powerful, best performance, or you could play it on the X, the Series X, the S, the SADs, all that stuff. So they're just, they have more flexibility in their release schedule and, like, what they need to do. There's nothing that they got to say it's a stopgap. Like, guys, this is when next generation starts. They don't have that. They don't have that in their position and their vision of what Xbox is. They don't have that stopgap, so they could be dropping all this stuff. And it's like, hey, if you want to buy it, now talking about buying it, and I gotta, where is my? I'm trying to find my do my He-Man thing, but yeah, I'm gonna do this thing. But like, there we go. We'll put Master Chief in there. But speaking about buying it, what do we think this is going to cost? You know, down to 12 teraflops. It's the most, that we've seen. How much is this thing going to cost? And, my thing is that seeing that price, seeing that those specs and stuff like that, my guess, I don't think this thing is even near $400. I don't think Microsoft will make this a $400 console. I think this is sitting right at $500. I don't think $600. I think that might be too much. I think they're comfortable probably releasing this at $500, just like they did with the X, just like they did with the base Xbox One. I think this will be $500. I think the biggest question now is where Sony's going to sit with their price. If Sony's going to be at $500 with possibly less teraflops, and this becomes the pricing strategies. Maybe they're 9 teraflops, like they're rumored to be, 10. Microsoft's at 12. Do they make it the lower teraflops at the same price, both of them at $500? Or does Sony put theirs at $400 and this is at $500? And then Microsoft they just dropped the X for sale right now to $300. So they're willing to drop that to $300. So I could see the X sitting at 3, the Series X sitting at 5, and then whenever this Lockhart thing becomes a reality, possibly coming out of $400. And that's the 3 to 4 to 5. I think that's kind of Microsoft's layout of future. You got your X, your Lockhart, which will eventually replace the X, and then you'll have a $400 and a $500 console, or your Lockhart will be at $300 and this will be at 5. But I do think that this will probably be sitting around $500. I can't see them dropping this at $400 with that power. If they do, that will be a great benefit to everybody. That will be a huge hit for them, but great for us. And the question is where Sony is. Now, like I said in a bunch of times, Sony has been the most price conscious throughout this whole generation, ever since they dropped that $600 PlayStation 3 and realized that was a travesty. Sony has been the most kind of price aware, taking the camera out, making their system for the PlayStation 4 $400. And then coming out with the Pro and saying $400. Not pricing at $500. They were only Pro in town. There was no X, so $400. I think Sony sees $400 as a price point, as a key price point, and migrating people from the 4 to the 5. And I can see them probably dropping theirs at $400. I don't know if Microsoft will do the same thing. I thought they should have done the X at $400 when they had the Pro sitting there. But he said more powerful, $500. And I think they might do this again. Like, I'm just getting so many kind of repeats of how that series, how the X launched with the teraflop talk, powerful, power, and you're going to pay for the power. Now, if Microsoft thinks that, if they could drop this at $400, that'll be great. But I think sitting there at $500, I think this will be a $500 console. The question is whether Sony's going to do a $400 or $500 console as well. And the rumors are that the Sony is not 12 teraflops. It's lower than that, but it might have other bus speeds that might be higher in different aspects. The thing is that both of them are going to be comparable in power. I think both of them are going to be there. Whether the teraflop distinction of 12, 11, 9, 10, there are going to be balances. I don't think there's going to be and I said this so many times before. I don't think the difference in power between the Series X and the PlayStation 5 is going to be as big as the X and the PlayStation 4 Pro. I don't think they're going to be that big. It might be 2 teraflops, it may be a difference and stuff like that. But I think visually, and we've seen this, like, this is the thing, like, this is not uncharted territory. We've seen this. We're 3 years into the most powerful console with the X sitting there and the PlayStation 4 Pro, and we've seen the games. There hasn't been a shift and a massive adoption of the most powerful console. There hasn't been that many games that just go, is a blurry disaster on the PlayStation 4. Go get it on the Xbox. Like the PlayStation 4 is holding it's holding up in their games, and these games are not blurry disasters. Like they're like zoom in 300 to see the difference. And are we gonna be another generation of that stuff? Zooming in $300 because then the question is like, is that worth $500? Is that worth a $200 difference? Is that worth a $100 difference? Now I'm not even talking about the content in the games, which that is what I said a few weeks ago is the most important thing. And Halo is going to be the lead thing. Like, Halo has to show incredible on the Series X because that is going to be Microsoft's claim to this is why you need 12 teraflops. And it has to look light years beyond the X. Because that's the other challenge that Microsoft has. Because their games are cross-generational, like they said, all their games, Microsoft now has to show the visual and differences between them all. They could say it's faster on the Series X. Okay, go get it. But, like, is it going to be visually 12? You could be like, yep, that's the 12 teraflop, that's the 6, and that's the 4. Or that's the 1.2. You know what I mean? Are you going to be able to see that? Whereas if you do just next generation exclusives, you don't have to worry about selling people on the differences. You just sell people on the game. You know what I mean? You don't have to sell them on like, well, this one is better. Like, you just say, hey, here's the game. This is the place to play it. So if Sony does do PlayStation 5 only exclusives, like a Horizon Zero Dawn 2, they don't have to compare that across the two consoles. They just be like, boom, there it is. Go get it. Well, Microsoft has a position that every single one of their first-party games, they're going to have to show this upscaling. They're going to have to show this smart delivery. And, you know what I mean? And hopefully we could see the 12 teraflops being used. Because I think that's the biggest criticism here is that what we've seen with the X is that we, like, what about my 6 teraflops? Like, that was supposed to blow my head off. Like, you know what I mean? I was supposed to be like, whoa! And there's been a few games, a handful of games, that really had that difference between the competition. So Microsoft has some work to do in the software aspect of it. But yeah, with their news, with the hardware, hey, this is great. You know, they didn't make people wait to E3. My thing is here, and again, this is just me speculating. They showed it at GDC. Not GDC, I'm sorry. They showed it at the Game Awards, right? They showed Hellblade 2. They tweeted out in February, hey, 12 teraflops here, majority of like the features of the specs. Not the breakdown specs like the RAM and all that stuff, but more of just like the next gen features, what to expect. I don't see them doing another event before E3. Like, I know there's speculation that they'll do one in April, like how they did with the Xbox One, the one where they had a media come out and do that. I don't. With them going to E3, I don't think that they're like, why? Like, they already showed it. They already had talked about the specs that they would probably do a slide at E3. Like, what would they do? Fly out everybody to kind of repeat everything and show game. You got to show games. That's the next step in this reveal. They show what it looks like. It's games and price. It's the sales pitch coming now. This is the start of it. The specs. But now the home stretch, the most important part of a console reveal is the games and the price. And that's that sounds like something for an E3. I don't think that would be, they would just kind of repeat everything again with this, because I don't think that this Xbox is tailored to this. And this is something I was noticing too, how their approach is, especially since Phil took on in this X and the Series X, is that, with the Xbox One, they started casual. They started going over people who watch TV. They were going people with cameras and motion controls, and they started more of a casual approach with that one. That's what people are pissed about. This one, they're going right to the elites. They're going right to the elites, going, hey, you guys who bought the X are going to buy the Series X because it's even more powerful than the one we do. It eats monsters for breakfast. Perfect example. It eats monsters for breakfast. You bought this, now you're the people that are power hungry and don't want to go to PC. This is who that's for. This is not a casual console. They got that one. That's the sad. That's why they're keeping the whole library of consoles around, because they're gonna hit each demographic with those consoles, and then just gonna make the one game that scales across all of them. There's pluses and benefits. There's benefits and you know and negatives to that, and I've been through those. Like, you know, there's goods and bads with that. That's great for everybody, but it's kind of bad if you have the most powerful console and it's, you know, if they run into issues where it gets held back, like, you know, the Minecraft 4K thing, it couldn't run on the base thing. The problem with the Halo, you know, not running on the base consoles and stuff like that, having issues on the PC with it. You know, there's issues with scalability, but most it works. And the thing is too is that this is a huge jump. So, you know, the devs are really going to have to really, I'm sure, like going between the X and the Series X, like that is a huge jump. And you know, what we need, I can't wait to see, you know, how this looks, because that's the first thing that Digital Foundry is going to do. They're going to be like, well, here's it running on the PlayStation 4 or the Xbox X, and here's it running on the new generation, and you're going to see them like, there's next gen right there, and hopefully it does that. You know what I mean? You know, hopefully it scales that way, and it makes it worth the investment. But they're going to more of a hardcore. Like they're going right to the people that say, hey, you want to spend the most, buy the most, you want the most powerful, but not go to PC. That's who this is for. Now, that's a very niche market. That's a very focused market. Especially if this thing's going to be priced accordingly like that. But they made it, the thing is that it still comes down to the games and price. They got the power. Now it's the question is that are we going to pay for that power? And is that payment going to be worth it? Because the games that they're going to show demonstrate the utilization of that power. And that's something that it's been a struggle. You know, it's been a you know, it hasn't been very evident in now having the most powerful console out there. And now the thing is that there's going to be Sony coming out. And now Sony is remaining quiet. And it is frustrating. You know, Microsoft, but again, the approaches by the two different companies, this is the benefit that Microsoft has as opposed to Sony. When you don't have generations, when you don't believe in generations and the games just run across all devices, you have the flexibility to announce everything a lot sooner. You could show this stuff a lot sooner because this is not a stopgap. This is a migration. This is basically a flat playing field. Sony is more of, when we start talking about PlayStation 5, we're going to start talking about PlayStation 5, and that's going to be next generation starts with us. Like, starts there. Yes, our games will be backwards compatible. The games that we have for the PlayStation 4 are coming out. Plus, they're going to run on the PlayStation 5. But when we start talking PlayStation 5, it's there moving forward. Like, it's going to be like, here are the games that we are working off of PlayStation 5. Go. Well, Microsoft could show games 2 years out. Well, because it's going to run on everything that you got right now. They're not cutting off anybody. Now, to which approach is better, who knows? I prefer the more traditional approach because I think it's much easier for me to commit to a platform that says, hey, these games can only be played here and they look this way because they're only on this system. That system has a value to me that I could say, yep, I'm buying this because of this. But if your games are playing on everything, you got to make them a lot more statements and a lot more kind of like, well, the shadows look better. I want the shadows look better. It runs faster. I can resume more games. Like there's more excuses to kind to do that when it's just not simple about games. Like, this game's here. And then the whole that's anti-consumer, that's horseshit. There's no anti-consumerism about it. You make a product, as a person who makes a product, you got to make that product demand from your consumers, and you got to make that product have value. You got to make that product have worth. Okay? Or it's not going to sell. And that's in everything. That's in cars. That's in any electronics. That's in services. That's in your product has to have work. And Netflix played the same stuff as Hulu. Where would you go? Oh, who's cheaper? The content is what's driving those platforms. Content is software here. Your phone does this does that. the 2019 models do this, the 2020 models do this. Why can't the 2019 models do what the 2020 models do? No. We need a perk. We need a reason for you to upgrade. So it's in everything. It's not anti-consumer, it's business. You gotta make your next product have value over the previous product. Or you gotta have a value between competition. You need to have value within the competition. Oz does this exclusively, and it does it better than them, things like that. So, for me, so that's where it comes into just being as a consumer. It's especially if there's things that I want to play and things like that. Like I'm excited for Halo. I'm a little nervous. 343 it has kind of not really met my expectations. I wasn't a huge fan of 4. 5, I really liked the multiplayer, but I felt like, it could have been. I really, I felt like they relied a little too much on the custom match and Forge. I wanted a little bit more innovation, with the maps, stuff like that. I felt like every big team battle match I played was on somebody's created map that they adopted for their game mode. And they didn't launch a big team battle, which was crazy. But I liked Halo 5 multiplayer. The story was not that great. I don't really care for the same enemies. They need a reboot, a refresh, and hopefully that's what this is. Hopefully that's what Halo turns into. But that's gonna be the big one. They're putting Halo behind this, and they got 12 teraflops on Halo. It's a win-win, and now it's Microsoft's marketing and to work on this, and they're able to do all this stuff too, while Sony remains quiet. And the one thing is Microsoft had to do this stuff. They have to do this stuff. They need to put themselves back. Like, if Sony's going to be quiet, they got to take advantage of that. They're not drop this like right after Sony drops some PlayStation 5 news, like, oh, and Oz is 12 teraflops too. No. But again, I said because of their approach, Microsoft has the flexibility to kind of talk next generation without kind of severing anything, because they're crushed. They believe in all generations. So I do think that given the flexibility, and with Game Pass working on everything, and xCloud and this whole, like, them being more open and on everything makes them much more open to share their future plans and able to share what's going on. So they're taking advantage of that approach, and I think it's great. We'll see. Am I gonna get one? I'll have to say, I really need to see. The games. That's what it comes out to, is the games. I keep like a Bleeding Edge. These games like Ori and Battletoads and stuff like that. Like, it's Halo. Man, like we need more games on the level of Halo, and that's what I've been asking for. You know what I mean? Those other games are great. I put them in the same boat as Concrete Genie and stuff like yeah. But you need Halo level games, Halo and Gears level games, and they need to show those games at E3. They need to show those kind of level of games. Don't show me fun with friends. Don't show me autistic thing. You gotta show games to demonstrate why we need this power. And that's where the ball falls down, because we've been talking specs. We talked to X specs, and they did X, and they're like, oh, here's the X, and here's Lucky's Tales, and here's Crackdown. And it's like, It wasn't until really Gears 5 came out that said, oh yeah, well, the X looks pretty good on the X. That's good. But we had to go through a lot of hubbub before we got to somewhere. You can't do that now. This is a console launch. Like, this has to look great. And I think, Halo is going to do that. From the engine and stuff like that. It's a new engine. It's built for this. So we'll see. And, I'm pretty excited for Halo. But the thing is that you need more. All right? You need more. You need a library of games, but you need balance. You need games like Battletoads, stuff like that, but you need your Halos, and you need games of that level. You need new IPs or remakes or or come back from IP that you have, like a Perfect Dark or something like that, on the level of a Halo and a Gears, or even a Fable, like a big game. You need these games to demonstrate the power of your system. You need these games. Because that's the biggest problem. And that's the one problem that the X had, is that look at the crazy people. And maybe, I'm wrong in saying that you need these games to demonstrate the power, because small games could do that as well. Like Hellblade did great, looked great and stuff like that. So it's maybe not. I just think Microsoft needs to have more balance on these things. Because I see so many kind of small titles, and I just say, well, I want big titles. And everybody just tells me, well, Halo and Gears and Forza. It's like, yeah. But you want to know what got me excited about the Xbox One? Titanfall. Do you remember the hype of Titanfall? Like, Titanfall was like, whoa, this is new. This is great. That got me excited about the Xbox One. Because I knew Halo and Gears were coming. But I'm like, ooh, Titanfall. Rise. Ooh. And that's what I'm saying. Like, we forget this. I just don't understand why a lot of people just forget that. They go, no, you got Halo and Gears. Shut up. No. Why? That's what I don't get. I like Titanfall was like, whoa, like, well, here we go. Microsoft signed Titanfall. Yep, let's go. I didn't care if it was first party, third party, two party, fifth party, seven party. I don't care. All I know is that it was on Xbox. It was there. And it looked incredible. That's all that mattered. Even the day and date stuff, it didn't matter. The game was great to play, and it was a reason to get a new console. Because it looked great there, and it was using the clouds, and whatever bull that they did. But I'm just saying, games on the level of Titanfall got me excited for it. Killer Instinct. Sunset. Overdrive. Like, we forget these level of games. These are not kind of like little games that were, oh yeah, well, it's neat to play. And no, these were legitimate games. Like let's go. Like, we need that kind of commitment from Microsoft in the games. And I don't want to see a bunch of little games, small, focused, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, this little game, and then saying, well, 12 teraflops. And it's like, yeah. The hardware and the software have to meet up. And that's what happened with the X. Like, that's the problem. You showed Lucky's Tales, Crackdown, State of Decay. It wasn't until really Forza and Gears. Again, Halo, Gears, and Forza. It's like, okay. What else? And Hellblade 2 could be one of those. But then Sony has a lesser platform, and you got the games that look like Days Gone and God of War and Spider-Man. Those games look crazy, and nobody's questioning teraflops there. The software has to, nobody really cares about the teraflops when the games look as they do and are polished, and, they have that graphical prowess and stuff like that. And that's what I think is the missing piece in this whole thing with these studios. 15 studios. Let's go. Let's see what they're doing. I want to see small games, big games, fun games that I want to go get a console for. Because look at the response to Animal Crossing. People cry, oh, and people ask, like, well, why? And even when Final Fantasy VII wasn't out, people were crying at the Sony conference. People are like, well, why? What can Microsoft release? They get people that excited for it. You know what I mean? And I think that's where they need that. They need the software to drive the services and hardware. They talk all the services, they talk all the hardware and all the specs. We're doing it again. 3 years later, 2017 remastered. We're back to teraflops. We're back to the most powerful console, or our most powerful console. Eating monsters for breakfast. The games. We talked studios. We got studios and stuff. We need more, and not games as here's we're making 3 games and 10 people each and little passion projects and stuff. There's a world for that. That's fine. But we also need a world too of logic. And we need to see scope. We need a balance. And I've been saying this. We need a balance from them. It can't be all go to Game Pass, fun with friends, casualized, let's go. That's all 15 studios are making, and not big games. All right? And stop saying Halo and Gears, because they need more than that. Because we've seen, just with Gears and stuff, like, they have won out as well. They don't have the luster that people want. You know, Gears 5, I don't know what the hell they're doing with it, but they keep fixing the online multiplayer. Like, yo, put in a bunch of new maps and new game modes. Like, have fun with it. Instead, everything is like, well, we're bouncing the Nasher again. We're doing, like, why does everything feel like a tech test? Like, come on. Have fun with it. New game modes. Look at all the variations in Call of Duty. They're in all the 1v1, challenge me, bro. Here's all season 2s and all those, like, new weapons, new characters, new maps, and new game modes teased. Like, come on. Look at Call of Duty's rollout of it's fun for a gamer. Instead of saying, well, we're fixing the ACR again. We're fixing the RP90. It's getting fixed. Stop fixing. Like, I understand balance, but Jesus, every single tweet is like, balance. We're fixing the Nasher again. Taking this one. Like, it's pissing off people. But again, like, it's wore out its welcome. Like, you're trying to balance between hardcore new and it's like, they need balance. And they need a balance in software. They need big games, little games, small games, and show us why we need the 12 teraflops, so we need this power. And that's like what I said before. Like, you know, that's the thing. Like, and again, we're coming to that point. Games and price. You know, Sony could show its console. They could show it what it looks like, if it's a V or if it's a box. They could show, well, we're at 9 teraflops and stuff like that. But if Sony comes out and shows Horizon Zero Dawn and it looks like your eyes are bleeding, nobody's going to care if it's 9 teraflops. And they're like, PlayStation 5 at launch. Whoa. And then they show Gran Turismo, so I was like, whoa, look at that game. Only on PlayStation. That looks like real. You know what I mean? If they show those games only on that thing, nobody's going to care about if it's a 9 versus a 12 teraflop. You know what I mean? Nobody, and that's the advantage that Sony has, is that if they, and the thing is too, is a Microsoft talking all this stuff, is basically breaking down bullet points that Sony could just be like, they're just waiting because Microsoft's revealing everything. They're like, oh, Rachel, we got that. I said, we got that. Check, 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 check. 9 teraflops. Check out these games. Boom. $3.99 November. Pre-order today. And all that leverage that Microsoft had, all that announcing at at the Game Awards, showing this on a tweet and stuff like that. How do they respond to that? So there's great things about going first, but it's also giving you competitional ammunition to counter that. Now, people think that now this 12 teraflop thing is putting Sony in fear. You know, it's not just the coronavirus, but it's actually the fear of the power. We've been living 3 years right now with the most powerful console in the world. Is anybody afraid? So let's stop that whole thing. Or is anybody poor? Or anybody lost money? Like, you know, did the Switch collapse because it's the weakest thing? Did Sony just not release games? Like, is Last of Us 2 not coming out because the most powerful console exists? Like, come on. Like, yeah, it's funny to joke and stuff. We joke back and forth about Xbox and PlayStation, you know, the coronavirus, and Sony's afraid, and everybody's afraid of the teraflops. But this whole, like, Microsoft has just dropped the bomb, and this power of the X is just shaking everybody. The whole industry shook because Microsoft has revealed this most powerful hardware. Didn't we just do this in 2017? Greenberg and even Pinello, who's not there anymore, wearing the jackets. The monster, it's a monster. And then they used that event to show a whole bunch of old games being remastered, looking better on an X. The content wasn't there. And it's still not there. Nobody's running out to play Battletoads. You know? And then when the content is there, it's not flowing right through the console because it's on everything. So, I don't know. It's a double-edged sword in every which way. But, hey, it's unconventional. I'm glad we didn't have to wait to E3. Get the specs out of the way and make E3 about the games, because this is the humdinger. This is where it is. The games and the price. That's going to be the key into what announces next generation. It's the games and the price. And Sony still remains quiet. Who knows what they're going to do? But when they come out, they got a bullet point of things to counter for Microsoft. And if they have the games and the price, it's the games and price. The power is great. And that's great. But again, it doesn't win console wars. We've seen this. And it's not about console war. But the biggest thing is that developers are going to go to the consoles that are selling more. That is going to be their lead platform for development. That's why maybe we don't see the X games look that much better, because they're not putting that effort into the X, because they're development primarily for the PlayStation 5, which is the lead console for development. The Switch is getting games because it's selling. But if you make your console an option and it doesn't really sell, are developers really going to take the time to develop for 12 teraflops, or they're going to focus on the optimal 9 teraflops? And then just to say, yeah, put a little sheen update on it. I don't know, put it on the X, like put it on the Series X. Like, that's the thing. So Microsoft has to give a reason to own this thing, not just the power. So power and price is going to affect adoption. But it's about the power, price, and games. Not the power, price, and games. I'm sorry. The price and the games. The content, which drives the service. The content is king. It drives the services and drives the stuff. And I know we get into the whole thing with the teraflops and the power and the resolution and all that. They're all going to be running 4K. So is this going to be running, maybe hit 60 frames consistently and Sony drops 50 frames? I don't know. If we're going to get into that whole frame rate gate, the Series X is hitting this at a consistent 60 frames a second, and Sony's is hitting it at 50. That could be something. That could be a change. You know what I mean? If Sony's console's not hitting consistent 50 and you're getting a lot more frame drops on Sony's and the experience is better on the Xbox, those are kind of shifting things. And we'll see how it goes. But again, just a drop in the specs in an article, I commend them. I think that's awesome. You know what I mean? But again, given their position, they have this flexibility. They have cross-generation. They don't believe in generations. So they could talk next-gen all they want, because there isn't a next-gen. It's all just like, hey, here's a new upgraded platform. This is our next Xbox. You know what I mean? There's no like, hey, we're leaving you behind and moving forward. Sony's going to be a little bit more of a stopgap. And there's going to be content for the PlayStation 5, I anticipate, and they're more traditional consoles. And we'll see which one prevails. I think it's a good spot for both of them, because they're both going to what their focus is and services, and Xbox is just services wherever you are. This is just another option. But yeah. But to see that power, we'll see what the price is. But anyway, I'm going to wrap up this Grindhouse, guys. I want to thank you again for coming out. And, I might go live later on this week. But I'm getting ready to go to PAX, and we'll see how that goes. But, yep, we are in the world of Next Generation, and you can always like Next Generation news. So, thanks again, Grinders. Talk to you guys later.